Thank you for watching my revision of my American history notes where I look over things I've already said and I want to see how I want to dig deeper into them or change some things I'm not happy with or whatever. So I hope you watched the previous videos. However, the French had heavily reinforced their colonial army when a French fleet slipped past a blockade set up against them. There was, however, a successful British expedition against Fort St. John and Beausejour in the Bay of Fundy, led by a provincial force commanded by Robert Monckton and John Winslow, which led to the deportation of the French Acadians exiled to the bayous of Louisiana. General Braddock's campaign was not so successful as his force was surprised and routed by a combined force of French and Indians at the Battle of Monongahela. Braddock was killed with more than half of his force, and Washington, who had two horses shot out from him, led the remnant back to Virginia. As a portent of things to come, the rigid linear formations of the British regulars had succumbed had succumbed to the elusive guerrilla tactics of the French and Indians fighting from cover and not meeting the enemy in the open. Now, here's something I want to change about this. I've done some reading, extensive reading about this battle, and there was a military manual from Europe that these people, the British Army and Braddock was familiar with and trained by, that told how to deal with marching through a forested area so you didn't get ambushed. And in reading these books about this battle, Braddock was warned. He was warned by his men, including Washington, they needed to spread out and through the woods so that they would not be ambushed. But Braddock was so arrogant that he was certain that the French and Indians would not have the mental capacity or military skills to ambush them. And that's kind of a paraphrasing the things he said. So this wasn't about the British, like in the movies, the British always stood shoulder to shoulder, and the Americans always hid behind the trees and stuff like that. They had tactics to deal with this. There was a good reason to stand shoulder to shoulder when you have a single shot rifle, musket, as the mass of fire, the mass fire, so that you can actually have a military effect on your enemy. But when you're walking through a place where, even in Europe, where you could be ambushed, I have the manual on my Kindle. I don't remember if it was Humphreys the name of it, but there was a manual that they trained under, and it explained very specifically what to do when walking through a forested area, and from experience they had in wars in Europe. So it is not completely correct to say that this happened because the French and Indians were fighting from cover and not meeting the enemy in the open, and the British insisted on marching, in the rigid linear formations like I read. And so I wanted to change that. And we can talk about that in more detail at some other time. So it's very interesting. So tell me what you think about what I just said. Do you agree or disagree? Do you have other information? Let me know what it is. I'd love to see what you have to say. Thanks for watching. Please click like. I appreciate it.